Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much and welcome to Tsukiji Hongwanji Buddhist Temple. Everybody, please join me in Gassho. Everybody, thank you so much for coming to this Saturday English service. First, we would like to begin the service by reciting the aspiration, which can be found on page 2 in the blue service book.
Reverently, we come before the shrine of our Amida Buddha, the Holy One, the Perfect One. With gratitude, we have brought our offering of love and devotion to honor the Buddha. We earnestly resolve to strive to understand the holy teaching and to walk every day in the blessed path, so that, like the Buddha, may we attain the peace of nirvana. Namandavs, 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 namandavs.
Now, we will chant the sutra, Jusei-ge. Please turn to page 3 of the same service book.
Namandav, 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 namandav. Namandav, namandav. Gagom chosegam hishimu jodo shigan fumanzok seifu joshogak gaon munyoko fuidai seishu fusai shobingu seifu joshogak gashi jobundo myosho chojippo kutyo mishomo seifu joshogak ryokuji shonen joe shubonyo shigumu jodo isho tennin shi jinriki en daiko fusho musaido shoujo sankumyo kosai shuyaku nam kaihi chi egen meshi komo heisoku shoakudo 津達前衆も高祖上満蔵いよろ実法日月中寿期天候音符で一種解放像公正功徳法上大集中説法ししく供養一切部無足習徳本願念心上魔得意三害用女仏無下地津達未不詳願学営利都市最小尊志願脈国家内戦後感動国書店に当珍妙でナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブ願にしく毒平等正祭道本菩提師往生安楽国ナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダナマンダ
We will now sing the Gatha Shinshu anthem found on page 5 in the same service book. Congregation, please stand up. Please remain standing for the recitation of 3 treasures found on page 4 in the same service book.
Difficult is it to receive a human form. Now we are living it. Difficult is it to hear the Dharma of the Buddha. Now we hear it. If we do not cross over to the truth in the present life, in what life shall we cross over? Let us, with sincerity and true reverence, take refuge in the 3 treasures of the truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. May we, together with all sentient beings, awaken to the great way of enlightenment and to the unsurpassed intent of Amida Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. May we, together with all sentient beings, enter the storehouse of the Dharma, becoming like the wisdom ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. May we, together with all sentient beings, become units in true accord, in harmony with all things. The peerless, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rare to encounter, even in many hundreds and thousands of kalpas. Now we are privileged to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of Tathagata's teaching. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandavs, 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 namandavs. Namandavs.
Please be seated. Please wait a moment until we are ready for the Dharma talk. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much for waiting, everyone. This evening, we are so happy to have Reverend Aya Honda, Minister of Ekoji Temple in Osaka, as our guest speaker. Honda Sensei will talk on sharing Buddha, Dharma, and Nembutsu, Jodo Shinshu from Tsukiji Hongwanji to America. I am so glad to introduce Honda Sensei to you.
Thank you very much. And of those who encounter the power of the primal vow, not one passes by in vain. They are filled with the treasure ocean of virtues, the defiled waters of their blind passions, not separated from it. 本願力に相ぬれば、虚しくすぐる人ぞなき、功徳の崩壊満ち満ちて、煩悩の浄水隔てなしと。Hello, everybody. And this is a passage by Shinran Shonin in his writing, Hymns of the Pure Land Masters. English translation is from the collected works of Shinran, which is CWS in your handout. We all have greed and anger, but regardless of what you are, as you meet the teaching of the Buddha, you're already in the world of Amida's great compassion. In this hymn, Shinran Shonin expresses Amida's compassion as a treasure ocean. And hello, my name is Aya Honda, and I came from Kyoto. And my temple is in Osaka. I would like to tell you a little bit about myself first. And I've heard Jingu Gaien, they have many ginkgo trees. And I heard they're going to be preserved, although the big construction may take place soon in the nearby area. And my temple also has a big ginkgo tree like this. And there are male and female ginkgo trees. You probably know about that. And my temple's tree is a female tree. It means this ginkgo tree grows many ginkgo seeds. And I always recall my weekend job at the temple at this time of year. I will take the ginkgo seeds that fell on the ground and place them in more than 5 large trash bags every weekend. And I don't just leave them outside, I'll peel them. And Satoimo, the taro, skin peeler machine, it helps me a lot. But I also peel with my hands. So my entire body smells of ginkgo, and it doesn't go away so easily. Another smell, yeah. And then I will dry them and put them in small bags like this. And my temple has a bazaar in November. So we always sell these ginkgo seeds. And they're very popular. It's 100 yen per bag. And it's sold very well. But my brother, he's a head minister, he decided to cut the tree a few years ago. And so I don't do that ginkgo work anymore. And it's a long and hard work. So I feel a little bit good in a way. But I also feel a little sad to see this ginkgo tree. No seeds are growing on the tree anymore. And it's a little sad for me. And I always remember my job at the temple in this season of the year when I see ginkgo trees and ginkgo seeds. And my family was not born and grown up at this temple. My family was adopted to the temple family when I was a junior in high school. And we began the bazaar at the temple. And we learned about the bazaar when we used to live in the United States. We were members of several Buddhist temples on the West Coast. And I was going to Japanese language school and Sunday school, which is now called Dharma school. And of course, we went to the Sunday services. And I met many Japanese American members there. They were very active and supportive of the temple. And one Nisei, he was a very good friend of my family. And Nisei means a second generation Japanese American. He made this obutsudan for us and sent it to us. And he shipped to us in Japan. And we would have a morning and evening service every day in front of this obutsudan. So this is all like made in the United States. And I would like to talk about people who cross the ocean today. And first, I would like to reflect on the ocean, the kanji umi, in Shinran Shonin's writings. And he uses this kanji, ocean, in more than 200 times in his text. And Shinran Shonin, he uses it in a variety of ways. But basically, the umi is used to express something immense. And he used this umi as a metaphor for great difficulty. And the words such as nandokai here, it's to express it's difficult to cross over. The passage is this passage is at the beginning of Kyogyo Shinshu, Shinran Shonin's main writing. It translates as, the universal vow, difficult to fathom, is indeed a great vessel bearing us across the ocean, difficult to cross. In Japanese, 密かにも見れば、汝の偶勢は何度かを度する御前。大仙, sorry. And this kanji is also used as a metaphor for our world of suffering. In Hymns of the Pure Land Masters, it says, "The ocean of birth and death, of painful existence, has no bound. Only the ship of Amida's universal vow can we, who have long been drowning, unfailingly be brought across it." In Japanese, 生じの深いほとりなし、久しく沈める我らをば。And kukai here literally means the ocean of suffering. Suffering is dukkha. And we have happiness and enjoyment, but we also have sufferings in our lives. But we sometimes get greedy and sometimes get very angry. However, the teaching of Amida Buddha, Amida Tathagata, is a great vessel that will guide us to the birth in the Pure Land. And Shinran Shonin also expresses himself using this word, umi. And this is one example. He says, "I, Gutoku Shinran, am sinking in the immense ocean of desires and attachment." And it goes on like this. "And lost in vast mountains of fame and advantage." And he realized himself as a person with greed, anger, and ignorance. And I remember Reverend Dr. Kenneth Tanaka, he always says we have GAS, G-A-S, greed, anger, and stupidity, and that's Bonno. And the Bonno is very difficult to get rid of. And the Shinran Shonin is saying he himself has them, has Bonno, and which is also difficult for him to overcome. So on the other hand, Shinran Shonin uses this kanji umi to express the great and compassionate teaching of Amida Buddha, Amida Tathagata, and Bodhisattva. In explaining larger sutra, Shinran Shonin writes, "When one has boarded the ship of the vow of great compassion and sailed out on the vast ocean of light, the winds of perfect virtue blow softly." 大悲の岩泉に乗じて光明の航海に浮かび乗れば。And he also uses this kanji to describe this one. And he also states that Buddha Dharma tells us to take refuge in the ocean of unhindered great shinjin, which is Muge no Dai Shinjinkai. So using this umi kanji to describe Amida's profound teachings, that Shinran Shonin felt grateful from the bottom of his heart. So there are many ways that Shinran Shonin used the word umi, this kanji, which means ocean. So today, I want to talk about some people who crossed the actual ocean, the Pacific Ocean, many years ago. Specifically, Jodo Shinshu Buddhists who had connection with both Tsukiji Hongwanji and the United States. And this country faced tremendous social, economic, and political changes in Meiji period. The Edo shogunate collapsed and new government was established. This change affected many people's daily lives. Some people decided to leave this country and work outside of Japan. And there are many stories about Japanese who crossed the ocean and went to the United States and Hawaii. Japanese people whose destination was the mainland United States crossed the Pacific Ocean by large vessels and landed on the West Coast. It is said that many wanted to return to Japan with abundant money so that they can pay back to their parents and their family, maybe relatives and friends. But for various reasons, they decided to stay in the United States. And they're called Issei, the first generation Japanese immigrants. And religiously, some Issei became Christians. The United States is a Judeo-Christian country, where Christian pastors and priests have been enthusiastically preaching to immigrants from Asia. However, many Japanese immigrants were Buddhists when they were in Japan. The Japanese immigrant society have been largely dominated by working-age male sojourners in these days, in early days. And the Jodo Shinshu people in those male immigrants, they get together, and about 30 male Jodo Shinshu Buddhists formed the Young Buddhist Association in 1898 in San Francisco. Young Buddhist Association is called YBA, which is Bukkyo Seinenkai in Japanese. In the previous year, a few Japanese immigrants, they became a member of this YBA. A few Japanese immigrants, they visited Honganji in Kyoto to ask Honganji headquarters to spread the teachings in the mainland United States. And Honganji moved quite quickly. And Jodo Shinshu ministers were officially sent to the mainland United States in 1899. And this is a newspaper article. It's a newspaper, it's called San Francisco Chronicle, and dated on September 18th, 1899. Sorry, the picture is not clear, but I hope you see two ministers, a picture of two ministers in the article. And this is the official start of the Jodo Shinshu in mainland United States. And Jodo Shinshu temples have been built constantly in the United States mainland for the next few decades. The temple was safe and secure place for Japanese immigrants. And let me introduce some of the old, the temple has a long history. And this is all from the book by Reverend Terakawa, which is published in 1936. And the San Francisco Buddhist Church of San Francisco was started in 1898, and this is the earliest. And this place is the headquarters of the Buddhist Churches of America right now. And the left-hand side is a current building. And then the following year, the Buddhist Church was built in Sacramento, which is 1899. And in the following year, 1900, there's one in Fresno Buddhist Church. And then there's a one in up in the Northwest in Seattle. It was built in 1901. And in the next year, the San Jose Buddhist Church was built, and it's 1902. So these temples were built like one after another, like every year. And the Issei, the first generation Japanese immigrants, they formed affiliated organizations at the temple. And these are some examples. The Young Buddhist Association was an active youth group. They soon began to form male and female groups. And male group is called Young Men's Buddhist Association, YMBA, and female group is called Young Women's Buddhist Association, YWBA. These young groups became the model for forming the International Buddhist Association at Tsukiji Hongwanji after the war, which I will talk about later. And these are some pictures from the YBA convention in 1930s. And left-hand side is a Northwest Young People Buddhist Federation Convention. It's YBA convention. And they said more than 400 people, 400 youth gathered there. And on the right-hand side is the YBA conference in 1932. And it's not just in the United States, but YBA members from Canada and Hawaii also gathered in San Francisco. And this is quite a big conference before the war. And Buddhist church also had Sunday school, which is now called the Dharma school. And coming of female Japanese immigrants in large numbers to the Japanese immigrant community started years after the large flux of male immigrants. And Japanese immigrant families were formed rapidly, and children were born. These children are called Nisei, second-generation Japanese Americans. And the parents send their children to temple every Sunday, and they went to Sunday school. And temples became the place for the family and Nisei children. And this is the old picture of the Sunday school, and this is also in Seattle. And Seattle had maybe 3 Sunday school places. And they have one at the San Jose Buddhist Church, and they had 2 more places. They offer Sunday school. And they also had this Sunday school teachers league. And Sunday school teachers, they get together in summer, and they had this big convention. And it was in 1938. It's also the newspaper. And another association at the Buddhist temples are Fujinkai. And Fujinkai is also called the Buddhist Women's Association, BWA in English. The formation of Fujinkai started in Japan during Meiji period, and is still prevalent in Jodo Shinshu in Japan and around the world. And back then, the Fujinkai was the organization for married women, mostly. And they voluntarily worked in many aspects of the temple. There is no denying that the organization has been playing vital roles at the temples, including financial support. And this is a picture taken in 1908, and this is probably the earliest Fujinkai members in Seattle. And the Seattle Buddhist Church, Buddhist Temple, they keep their records, minutes from the meetings. So minutes are all in Japanese. And 50 years later, which is 1958, the BWA Fujinkai members are growing. We cannot underscore how much the organization, the Fujinkai Buddhist Women's Association, and Issei female Buddhists had done to keep the temple active and survive. And Jodo Shinshu ministers arrived from Japan constantly. In other words, Honganji in Kyoto kept sending ministers. Unlike many Jodo Shinshu temples in Japan, the temples abroad do not take hereditary system within the temple family. So many ministers came to the United States by themselves and returned to Japan after they finished their service. The Immigration Act of most Japanese was banned in 1924 due to the Immigration Act. Although the Japanese Immigrant Society did not see many new immigrants after this Immigration Act of 1924, Jodo Shinshu teachings brought from Japan were maintained by Issei and Nisei members and ministers. The discrimination against Asians was very strong, facing legal, verbal, and physical hatred from the larger society. Buddhist temples and communities, which is called Sangha, became a safe, religiously and socially important place for them, for Issei and Nisei people. Although the prefectures in Japan they came from varied, they have many things in common, such as experiences after arriving in the United States, and they speak the same language, Japanese, and culture, and maybe customs too. And most importantly, they had Jodo Shinshu teachings. And for them, it was a place to enjoy sharing Buddhist teachings that they were accustomed to from Japan. The war broke out between the United States and Japan in December 1941. Japanese immigrants on the West Coast were forced to evacuate and incarcerated in assembly centers first, and then to the internment camps, built inland far from their homes. The immigrant and their children kept their religion, Jodo Shinshu, in the internment camps. And Buddhist temples in the camps are described precisely by Dr. Duncan Williams' recent book, The American Sutra. So if you're interested in the Buddhist church, the Jodo Shinshu during the war in the United States, I think this is a very good book to read. It was published in 2019, and it's quite popular. But some Issei and Nisei people were deported to Japan during the war. Now I want to talk about the after World War II in Tokyo, a Nisei in Tokyo. After World War II, the United States occupation of Japan began, and approximately 5,000 Nisei were stationed in Japan as American military personnel and civilians. A number of these Nisei were Jodo Shinshu members back in the United States. And some Nisei went to Japan after the war for other reasons, like getting education and maybe family issues. They were also temple members, and they know very much about the YBA and different affiliated organizations back in the United States. And these Nisei got together in Tokyo at Tsukiji Hongwanji here. And these Nisei formed a group here at Tsukiji Honganji in 1949. This organization is called the International Buddhist Association, which is IBA, and Kokusai Bukkyo Kyokai in Japanese. Have you ever heard? Okay. They started this English service. And the service is still carried on today, like this. So it's been almost like 75 years. Yeah. That Tsukiji Honganji is having this English service. Isn't it nice? So wonderful. And IBA was formed by Nisei, Reverend Seishin Kiyoshi Yamashita, and several others. Let me introduce some articles from their 30th anniversary booklet, which is published in 1980. And here I would like to thank Mr. Dennis Yamashita in Seattle for providing me this 30th year booklet, and then Reverend Yamamoto, current IBA president, and providing me a lot of stories about the IBA. Thank you very much. And the IBA founding member, Reverend Seishin Kiyoshi Yamashita, he says, it was on August 1949, during the height of the occupation, that this group of Nisei and Caucasian Buddhists gathered to discuss the feasibility of young people's society capable of fulfilling their religious needs. Wanted was an organization preferable composed of English and Japanese-speaking members, holding regular devotional services, promoting spiritual welfare through the propagation of Buddhist teachings, and serving as a social group to propagate goodwill between foreign and Japanese Buddhists. And he goes on like, he continues. Such an organization would serve a dual purpose by not only satisfying the spiritual needs of Nisei and Caucasian Buddhists, but also granting Japanese young people a new concept of the temple as a religious institution. So for Nisei Buddhists, the IBA was a precious place to meet people of the same beliefs, the Jodo Shinshu, abroad. So they're in Japan, so abroad. And who spoke English. And it was important that they speak the same language, English. And it was also a place for Japanese youth to learn how Jodo Shinshu temples work in the United States, like coming to the temple on every weekend and join the Sunday service, and doing bazaars for fundraising and sponsoring social activities. They were not so common at Japanese temples. So IBA was a good place for Japanese youth to learn how the temple is carried on outside of Japan. The IBA members included different racial and ethnic groups. They had Nisei and Japanese people in Japan, and Caucasians and white people, Hakujin people. It was a place for these people to get together and enjoy the teachings. Jodo Shinshu started in Japan many, many years ago, and widely spread among Japanese people. But however, the teaching was not limited to Japanese people. So Tsukiji Hongwanji IBA was a place for all people, regardless of race and ethnicity. And they had picnics, bazaars, and outings. The bazaar was for the fundraising, and the long-lasting activity sponsored by the IBA was English class. Japanese members who wanted to study English were students, and teachers were Nisei members. And they were divided into 3 classes, like basic English, intermediate, and advanced. And according to the Honganji Shimpo, Honganji newsletter, published in 1951, it says 40 people were studying English at Tsukiji Hongwanji, and the IBA did not charge them. So it was very nice English class. And IBA was also the organization for training Nisei ministers. Nisei who were studying Buddhism in Tokyo joined the IBA members and later became ministers officially. And some were also students of Tokyo Bukkyo Gakuin, and it was also called Buddhist Institute at Tsukiji Betsuin at this time. So I would like to introduce some of the writings on the 30th anniversary booklet. And this is from this is written by Reverend Hogen Fujimoto. He says, I had been in Japan during the war years studying Buddhism in Kyoto, and immediately upon graduation was able to find a job with GHQ in Tokyo. I was fully ordained as I had completed my Tokudo Kyoshi rites a few years earlier. My participation in the weekly IBA Sunday services gave me my first practical experience in conducting Buddhist services, an experience I treasured a great deal as it provided me with a basic experience for my later duties in the United States. The training ministers, these ministers had an opportunity to give Dharma talk at the IBA Sunday service, and they could do it in English. And they also had chance to join Tsukiji Hongwanji Japanese service, so they get to see both English and Japanese services here at Tsukiji Hongwanji. This place was an important place for those who wanted to study and propagate Buddhism. And this is another writing by Reverend Akira Tairyo Hata. And he came to Japan with his wife in 1954 to study Buddhism. But they were struggling because of the language. And my wife and I went to Japan in 1954 with great hopes of learning about the Buddhist religion and Jodo Shinshu, but found it very difficult, to say the least, because of the Japanese language. My wife and I faithfully attended the IBA with its Sunday service in English and made many friends there. At first, I was part of the congregation, but later started to go on rotation as a minister, giving sermons in English. Going there Sunday after Sunday, the IBA group became our Sangha, our friends in the Dharma, and it was a joy to see and talk with them. The Honganji Shimpo, the Honganji newsletter, states that IBA has 30 foreign members, including Nisei, and 50 Japanese members in April 1951. And many of its foreign members returned to the United States, and some of them returned to Hawaii, went to Canada. They remember the fun and enjoyable time at Tsukiji Hongwanji. And this is by Reverend Toru Teshin Kakimoto. And he says, IBA, as I shall always remember it, brings back many pleasant memories of numerous meetings, Sunday services, picnics, dinners, social gatherings, and the happy moments of worship and fellowship among the members who are predominantly American Nisei servicemen, civilian employees of the United States Armed Forces stationed so very far away from home. To many of us who subsequently returned home, IBA was a link that spanned what I now consider to have been the most important, significant period in my life. The word link here is goen in Japanese, interdependence or dependent origination. Although Nisei at IBA may not have known each other back in the United States, but they met here in Tokyo and had pleasant time together. And people here too, and came all from all walks of life, and are here to attend the service together. So it is a wonderful goen of the Buddha Dharma. And in the back of your handout, I put the IBA news, which is published in March 1951. And there's an article about Reverend Nakagami. He was a rinban of the Honganji, of the Tsukiji Hongwanji in the late 1940s. And that was the time the IBA was established. And he was very supportive of the IBA. And Reverend Nakagami, he was a minister in mainland United States and Canada for 10 years before the war. And after he became a rinban here, he provided rooms for young English-speaking members at Tsukiji Hongwanji. And this newsletter article includes things he spoke at the IBA Sunday service in February 1951. And he said he was surprised that English Sunday service continued for a year and a half. So IBA started in 1949, and this article was published in 1951. So the English service has been kept for that long. So he was surprised. But he also says his hope was that I sincerely hope that Nisei Buddhists will further your understanding of Saint Shinran's teachings and confirm your faith in Amida Nyorai, Amida Buddha, while you're in Japan and return to the United States, ready to render your service for the spread of Buddhism in your homeland. And the IBA was continuous Buddhist and Jodo Shinshu encountering place for Nisei outside of America. They continued to listen to Nembutsu teachings by attending Sunday services at Tsukiji Hongwanji. And they returned to their country and became active members and ministers at their local temples and headquarters, as Reverend Nakagami has just said. And Reverend Kakimoto, he returned to the United States as a BCA minister in 1962. He served at temples in Arizona, Gardena, and San Mateo. And Reverend Hogen Fujimoto, he served at the BCA headquarters as a youth department director, and later the director of Buddhist education. And he was also an active director of Institute of Buddhist Studies in Berkeley, And Reverend Hata, he served as a resident minister at Fresno, Placer, and West Los Angeles temples. So they worked to propagate Buddhism and Jodo Shinshu back in their home country. The IBA was also famous for conducting music service, ongaku hoyo. Honko service in 1949 was led by Tsukiji Hongwanji and the IBA. And so they say 50 ministers and 1,300 members gathered. That's a very big crowd. Yeah, big attendance. And they had music sutra chanting, Junirai, and English and Japanese gathas, music, songs, and English Dharma talk followed. A well-known word, hongaku hoyo, was initially made at this time. And they also had English Sunday service, and they also had music in there. And the NHK radio recorded IBS Jodo A service in December and released it later. And IBA also conducted English service at Honganji in Kyoto. And this is the article from the Honganji newsletter, Honganji Shinpon, in April 1951. And says IBA no ongakoyo, IBA music service. And later, NHK, again, broadcasted IBA Ohigan service in the fall of 1954 for overseas viewers. So this ongaku hoyo was very popular, and it became popular from the International Buddhist Association here at Tsukiji Honganji. And I would like to conclude my talk with the Gassho Shinshu Shuka lyrics. And we just sang the song. And Shinshu Shuka, which is translated as Shinshu anthem, it was initially made in 1923. And this is one of the popular gathas in Jodo Shinshu, and they have 3 verses. And first and second verses explain Jodo Shinshu teachings explicitly. It is said that third verse was added later, or maybe revised, after the first and second verses. The third verse focuses on spreading the teachings to the world. It starts like this, Umi no uchi to no herate naku. Literally, it means no boundary in this side and that side of the ocean. So its English translation is, as we just sung, and that all of the nations receive Amida's light. And Nembutsu teachings guided by Shinran Shonin are for everyone, regardless of where you are and what you are. The IBA started by Nisei Buddhists from the United States, and this one continues today. I would like to thank the IBA and its founding members. Although all its original members passed on, people still gather here at the English Dharma service. So as we gather here, we chant sutra together, and we sing together, and recite Nembutsu together. It is a wonderful link, goen, and it is a wonderful link, goen, that for all of us to be able to meet here at Tsukiji Honganji at this particular time. And I am very grateful for this goen. And most importantly, I'm very grateful for Amida Buddha's teachings, which is guided by Shinran Shonin. And we are all in the ocean of Amida's profound and wonderful compassion teachings. And this is the end of my talk, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honda Sensei, for the really interesting Dharma talk. Thank you very much. We will now sing the gatha, Namo Amida Butsu, on page 6 in the blue service book. Congregation, please stand up. Please be seated. Let us recite together the Shinshu Creed found on page 2 in the same service book. Followed will be the recitation of the benediction.
If you will follow along on page 2, the Shinshu Creed, we single-heartedly take refuge upon Tathagata Amitabha for the enlightenment in the life to come, abstaining from all sundry practices and teachings and giving up the trust in our powerless self. We believe that the assurance of our rebirth comes at the very moment we are led to entrust upon the Buddha, and we call the name Namo Amida Butsu in happiness and thankfulness for the Buddha's great compassion. We also acknowledge gratefully the benign benevolence of our founder and the succeeding masters who have led us to believe in this profound teaching, and we do now endeavor to follow throughout our lives the way laid down for us. Amida Buddha sends all men in all forms of life with infinite life and light. Particularly does the Buddha send forth loving thoughts to those in suffering and sorrow, to all those in doubt and ignorance, to all who are striving to attain truth, and to those whose feet are standing close to the great change men call death. Amida Buddha sends forth oceans of wisdom and compassion. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandavs, 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 namandavs. Namandavs.
We would like to thank all of you for attending here in person and watching through the YouTube channel for today's Tsukiji Hongwanji's English service. For those attending here in person, please take time to scan the QR code. Can you bring that? Thank you. Hold that. Yeah, she's having that right now. There is a QR code. We're gonna locate it near the entrance. So for those watching online, please click on the link provided in the description field. We would appreciate if you could up the survey provided in the link and give us your feedbacks or views, like what you think, what you felt, what you thought, and or what you want us to do. So or views, so we can improve our services. And the next service will be our holl service, which commemorates Shinran Shonin, which is the founder of Jodo Buddhism, and it will be held on November 25th at 5:30 p.m. in the same room. The guest speaker will be Dr. Kenneth Tanaka, Professor Emeritus of Musashino University, and the topic will be Amida Buddha, how to understand and appreciate the central Buddha of Shin Buddhism. After the service, there will be dinner reception held on the second floor from 7 p.m. and the cost will be 2,000 yen per person. Please feel free to come and join us for the reception. We look forward to seeing you again, and let us put our hands together in Gassho. Namandavs, 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 namandavs. Please feel free to come forward to offer incense and free to join us in the fellowship and the refreshments after the service. Once again, thank you so much for coming to today's service. Thank you so much. どうもありがとうございました。お気をつけてお帰りください。